Hello, friend. Starting today, I'm about to share with you a story of courage, longing, and the bonds that endure even through the darkest of times. This is the story of Luigi and Marco. It's a tale that takes us through ordinary moments and extraordinary danger. From the quiet halls of a college campus to accidental encounters with crime and the shadows of the underworld, Luigi and Marco's journey is one of friendship, moral choices, heartbreak, and unwavering love. Marco tells the story from his heart, sharing the moments of wonder, fear, and longing he experienced as he navigated a world full of challenges, and as he struggled to hold on to the hope of being with Luigi, the person who changed his life forever. Through twists of fate, daring acts, and the courage to face their own feelings, Luigi and Marco discover that love is not just a feeling. It is a choice, a commitment, and sometimes the light that guides you through the darkest nights. So settle in and let yourself be carried into this journey. This is a story of two hearts finding each other, of bravery in the face of danger, and of the enduring power of love. Welcome to the world of Luigi and Marco. Chapter 1: Campus Life and a Charming Stranger. The summer sun was relentless. Even before my feet touched the campus sidewalk, I could feel the heat pressing down like a physical weight, making my shirt stick to my back and the air thick and heavy around me. The quad smelled of freshly cut grass, concrete baking in the sun, and the faint scent of someone's lunch drifting across the lawn. Students wandered in small clusters, some laughing, some checking their phones obsessively, and a few running between buildings with backpacks bouncing. I was one of them, though I walked slower than usual, weighed down by both my bag and my own restless thoughts. Heather, ahead of me, moved with that effortless elegance that seemed natural to her but impossible to replicate. Her heels clicked sharply against the concrete. She glanced back, her brow arched slightly, catching me lagging behind. "Marco, try to keep up," she said, her tone calm but carrying that subtle edge of expectation that always made me feel a little self-conscious. "I'm trying," I muttered, adjusting the straps of my backpack. Then I saw him, Luigi. He was leaning casually against the railing near the library steps, one foot resting lightly on the bottom step, the other planted firmly on the concrete. The camera slung over his shoulder seemed almost incidental, like an extension of himself rather than a tool. He exuded calm, effortless confidence. His dark hair glinted in the sunlight, and his eyes swept across the quad in that measured way people have when they are fully aware of everything but never rushed by it. Heather noticed me pause. "Who's that?" she asked, tilting her head ever so slightly, a hint of curiosity mixed with suspicion in her voice. I shook my head quickly. "Nobody," I said, forcing my gaze forward. Luigi straightened slightly, adjusting his camera strap, and then our eyes met. Just for a moment. A single heartbeat. But that brief contact sent a strange pulse through me, a tingle of something unfamiliar, something electric and unsettling. My stomach knotted. My pulse quickened. There was something in his gaze, calm yet intense, that made me feel both seen and exposed. Heather tugged at my sleeve. "Come on, we'll be late if you dawdle." I followed, though my attention kept drifting back. Luigi's presence lingered at the edge of my vision, magnetic, impossible to ignore. Every subtle motion, how he shifted his weight, how he adjusted the strap, the faint curve of his lips when he smiled at someone across the quad, seemed deliberate, calculated in a way that pulled me in. Lecture halls were a different kind of heat. The professor's voice droned on, a monotone reciting material I had learned long ago. My notebook lay open, but my pencil drew absent-minded lines. The faint outlines of Luigi's posture, his hair, the slope of his shoulders. My attention flitted constantly to the thought of him. How he moved, how he observed, the way he seemed present without being part of the chaos around him. Heather leaned over, lowering her voice. "Marco, are you even listening?" Yes, I lied. "Just tired." Her brow furrowed. "Tired?" Huh? I wanted to tell her the truth, that my mind had left the classroom entirely, wandering to thoughts of Luigi, tracing over every fleeting detail I had noticed in our brief encounters. But I couldn't. She wouldn't understand, and the last thing I wanted was to complicate things further. After class, Heather went to meet her friends. I had errands, returning books, picking up supplies, and then my part-time job at the campus convenience store. The streets were busy with students, bicycles weaving through crowds, the smell of street food drifting from carts nearby. My backpack weighed heavier with each step, though my mind was elsewhere, consumed by the memory of Luigi's steady, deliberate presence. And then, as if fate had conspired to interrupt my life again, he was there, Luigi, leaning against the wall near the store entrance, the camera over his shoulder, watching. My heart skipped. My pulse raced. I wanted to look away, to keep moving, but I couldn't. He had a gravity that held me in place. Even from a distance, he noticed me immediately. That calm, knowing smile appeared. "Hi," he said softly, yet the weight of his tone made my chest tighten. "A hi?" I stammered. "I didn't expect to see you here." "You're always busy," he said, tilting his head, studying me. "You need a break." I guess," I replied, unsure what else to say. He didn't look away. "Busy people are interesting," he said. "It tells me a lot about them." Those words struck me. I had never considered that someone like him would notice qualities like responsibility, focus, attention to detail, qualities I had often considered mundane. Yet the way he said it made it feel like he saw me in ways no one else did. The following weeks became a slow, intricate dance of encounters. Luigi appeared everywhere: library, cafe, quad, even outside my dorm. Each time, my mind raced, my heart lurched, and a strange mix of fear and exhilaration coursed through me. I noticed the smallest details: the scuff on his shoes, the tilt of his camera strap, the faint curve of his smile. Every glance left a mark, every word a lingering echo. Heather was aware. I could feel it in her subtle glances, in the half-questions she asked, in the tension that radiated silently between us. "You've been different lately," she said one evening, in that soft tone that was serious enough to make me tense. Not fully present. "Something's going on, isn't it?" "I'm fine," I said, forcing a smile. "Just tired." But I wasn't fine. My thoughts were consumed by Luigi, by the growing pull, and by the tension between loyalty to Heather and fascination for someone I barely knew. The campus convenience store smelled of coffee grounds and stale chips, an oddly comforting scent that became my anchor in those chaotic weeks. Work was repetitive: stocking shelves, sweeping floors, dealing with distracted students, but I welcomed it. It gave my mind a rhythm, a structure, a chance to dwell quietly on the thoughts I couldn't voice elsewhere. And, inevitably, I found myself scanning the streets outside the glass doors, half hoping, half dreading the familiar figure leaning against the wall. Luigi. He appeared without warning, like a ghost slipping through the edges of my day. I caught a glimpse of him leaning on his camera, hands casually tucked into his pockets, posture perfect and effortless. My pulse quickened. Why did he have to affect me so profoundly, so suddenly? It wasn't just attraction. It was a tension I couldn't name, a magnetic pull I felt every time he appeared. I tried to act normal, straightening shelves, wiping counters, assisting customers. But my eyes kept darting to him, and then he noticed. Our eyes met across the store, and in that instant, the world narrowed to a single thread connecting the two of us. He offered the faintest nod, and a subtle smile, but it carried weight. Something about him always carried weight, like every small gesture had meaning, and every glance revealed something I wasn't yet ready to understand. I excused myself from a customer to glance outside more openly. He hadn't moved, hadn't even looked away. I wondered if he had noticed the tremor in my chest, the way my hands fidgeted with the edge of my apron. The day passed in a blur of small interactions, the air thick with humidity and anticipation. And through it all, Heather's presence lingered. Her subtle tension had grown, a quiet push and pull that reminded me I was tethered elsewhere. She came by the store once, ostensibly to pick up a snack, but I could see her measuring me with sharp eyes, her smile polite but guarded. "Boozy as always," she said casually, though her tone hinted at more. "Wes," I replied, trying to sound nonchalant. "Keeping up with everything." Heather's brow creased slightly. "I hope you're not distracted," she said carefully, her words layered with meaning. I wanted to tell her the truth, but I didn't know how. I couldn't explain Luigi, the pull, the tension that had taken root in my chest. After Heather left, I found myself lingering near the door long after the last customer had gone. I watched the street, inhaled the faint scent of summer blooms and distant exhaust, and imagined Luigi walking past, smiling faintly, aware of me in ways I could never fully articulate. That evening, I lingered on the quad, avoiding dorm rooms and the quiet isolation that came too easily. I walked slowly, tracing the edges of the library steps, past the benches, past students studying or chatting. My heart skipped when I saw him again. Luigi, seated on a bench under the sprawling branches of a tree, the sunlight glinting off his hair. He wasn't reading, wasn't filming. He was just there, observing. Our eyes met almost immediately, and I felt that same jolt of something unfamiliar but impossible to ignore. He tilted his head, faint smile, and motioned subtly for me to come closer. My heart thrummed like a drum in my chest as I approached, each step measured, uncertain. "Long day?" he asked casually. "You could say that," I murmured, unsure if my voice was steadier than my hands. "I've noticed you," he said, almost as if reading my mind. Boozy, distracted, but still aware. "It's impressive." I swallowed hard, heat rising to my cheeks. I just try to keep up," I said, though my words felt hollow. He smiled faintly, eyes flicking away to some invisible point in the distance before returning to me. "There's something about people who notice everything but say little. You notice, but you also hesitate. That restraint, it's rare." I didn't know how to respond. I wanted to confess everything. My thoughts, my fascination, my confusion. But the words stuck in my throat. All I could do was nod, feeling exposed yet understood, a paradox I had never felt before. Heather's shadow lingered in my mind, even as Luigi and I spoke. She had always been perceptive, her intuition sharp. She noticed the subtle ways my attention shifted, the faint flush on my cheeks, the distracted tone in my voice. And I knew it was only a matter of time before she confronted me, before she sensed the distance growing between us. The next few days were a delicate balance. Work, campus life, classes, all layered with subtle interactions with Luigi. He seemed everywhere and nowhere, always present, but never imposing. A shared glance at the cafe, a small wave across the quad, a faint smile that lingered in memory long after the moment had passed. Each encounter left me both exhilarated and anxious, caught between the world I knew with Heather and the world Luigi had quietly inserted himself into. One afternoon, as I was restocking the drink fridge, I noticed a group of students gathered outside, whispering urgently. I glanced out, curious, and caught sight of Luigi standing slightly apart, camera in hand, observing them with calm precision. Something about the way he carried himself suggested awareness beyond the obvious. Curiosity drew me outside. "What's going on?" I asked, though I already sensed he didn't need an answer. "Just noticing," he said, his voice low, measured. "People reveal more than they think." I frowned slightly. "Like what?" He glanced at me, expression unreadable. "Like intentions, fears, strengths, and weaknesses. It's subtle, but it's always there, always visible if you know how to look." I couldn't look away. His words, his tone, the subtle weight behind each syllable. It was intoxicating and terrifying. I realized, with sudden clarity, that Luigi didn't just observe the world. He dissected it, understood it, and perhaps even controlled it in ways I could not yet comprehend. Night fell slowly, casting long shadows across the quad. I lingered near the library steps, unwilling to retreat to the dorms, unwilling to leave. The air was cooler now, carrying the faint scent of grass, damp earth, and distant cooking. Luigi emerged again, as if the day had been a rehearsal leading to this moment. He approached silently, almost gliding across the space between us. "You think too much," he said softly, and I blinked at him, startled. "I do," I asked, voice uncertain. "Wes, you analyze, predict, imagine. It's exhausting to watch, sometimes, but also fascinating." I laughed nervously, unsure how else to respond. "And you're always calm. Observing everything, never flustered." He tilted his head, considering me. "Not flustered, aware. Focused. You can do both. Be aware and remain calm. But it's rare. Most people either panic or ignore. You notice but hesitate. That restraint is interesting." The words echoed inside me. Restraint, fascination, awareness. Each term etched into my consciousness, highlighting a truth I could not yet voice. That my attention, my obsession, my heart, already tipping towards something I barely understood, was entirely his doing. We parted as silently as we had met. My steps back to the dorm felt heavier than before, my mind spinning with unasked questions, with unspoken attraction, with a mixture of fear and longing that had no easy resolution. Heather's presence loomed in my thoughts, but Luigi's influence had already begun to seep into the very fabric of my days, threading tension, intrigue, and a strange, unfamiliar excitement through every moment. The next morning, I woke with a dull ache in my chest, the remnants of yesterday's encounters pressing heavily on my mind. Even before my feet hit the floor, I replayed the brief exchanges with Luigi, the subtle movements, the quiet intensity in his gaze. Heather stirred beside me, still half asleep, curling slightly against the pillow, her hair a soft cascade over her shoulder. A pang of guilt tightened my chest. She deserved my attention. She had been there, constant and patient, long before Luigi had appeared like an uninvited storm. Yet, try as I might, my thoughts wandered to him, to the way he moved, to the way he seemed to understand more than I ever expected anyone to. Breakfast was tense. Heather kept glancing at me, small hints of frustration in her eyes, though her words remained polite. "You're quiet today," she said. "Not that I mind, but you seem elsewhere." "I'm fine," I lied again, my voice firmer than I felt. "Just thinking about assignments." She didn't push further, but I could feel her curiosity, her awareness of the shift in my demeanor. It was subtle, silent, a tension that threaded through the morning air as we walked to campus together. In class, the professor's monotone lecture barely registered. My notebook lay open, but the ink traced shapes rather than notes. The curves and angles of Luigi's profile, the subtle movement of his hands adjusting the camera strap, the faint tilt of his head as he observed a student across the room. Every detail replayed in my mind, sharper than reality, more vivid than the words spoken around me. Heather nudged me softly. "Marco, you're spacing out again," she whispered. I'm just thinking," I muttered, though I could feel the heat rise to my cheeks. My focus was fragmented, torn between loyalty and curiosity, comfort and an unfamiliar pull I didn't yet understand. After class, I wandered toward the campus cafe, seeking refuge in the familiar routine of ordering coffee, scanning the crowded room, listening to students chatter about exams and assignments, and there he was, Luigi. Leaning against the railing outside, camera over his shoulder, eyes scanning the crowd like a sentinel. My pulse quickened. I hesitated, debating whether to approach, whether to risk the awkwardness, the intensity of a conversation that could unravel my carefully maintained composure. "Marco," he said softly as I drew near, the familiarity in his tone both comforting and alarming. "You're always here at this hour." Observing, thinking, analyzing. I'm just taking a break," I replied, though my voice trembled slightly, trying to clear my head. He studied me for a long moment, gaze steady. It's hard to clear your head when something or someone occupies it entirely. The words struck deep. I wanted to deny it, to claim reason and order over this inexplicable attraction, but I couldn't. "Maybe," I murmured, Days turned into weeks. Luigi and I encountered each other with increasing frequency, each meeting a charged moment of unspoken connection. A glance, a brief exchange, a faint smile, all layered with meaning I could barely comprehend. I started noticing patterns. The way he lingered near the library steps at certain times, the faint scratch of his camera strap across his shoulder, the subtle shifts in posture when he sensed someone approaching. Heather noticed too. Her sharp intuition had never failed, and she began to ask pointed questions, testing boundaries, searching for cracks in my composure. "Who's Luigi?" she asked one afternoon, her tone casual but her eyes piercing. I froze, heart pounding. "What do you mean?" "You've been distracted," she said softly. "I see it in the way you look at the quad, at the library. I see it in the way you hesitate. Something is going on." I couldn't answer. The truth, my fascination, my growing obsession with Luigi, the strange, unfamiliar pull I felt, was too raw, too delicate, too dangerous to voice. Instead, I forced a smile, one that felt brittle and inadequate. "It's nothing, just tired, I guess." Heather's lips pressed into a thin line, and she didn't push further. But the tension lingered, a silent reminder that my divided attention had consequences, that my heart was threading itself in directions I couldn't yet control. One evening, I found myself lingering near the campus fountain, the warm orange glow of sunset painting the quad in soft, molten light. The murmurs of students faded into the background as I traced the patterns of water, lost in thought. And then, almost inevitably, Luigi appeared. "Marco," he said, voice low, carrying the faintest hint of amusement. "You're always thinking, always analyzing." "I can't help it," I admitted, heart thumping. "Everything seems intense lately." He tilted his head, observing me. "It's because you notice. Most people don't notice. Most people drift, overlook, forget. You pay attention. It's rare." His words felt like a key turning in a lock, unlocking emotions I had kept tightly sealed. "What do you care?" I asked softly, almost afraid of the answer. He smiled faintly, a curve that seemed to hold both mischief and gravity. "I notice things. People, their patterns, their struggles, and when I notice, I can't help but care." Ah! The sincerity, the weight of his statement, struck me. I wanted to reach out, to speak, to tell him everything, but the words lodged in my throat. Instead, I nodded, letting silence carry the meaning, letting the space between us hum with unspoken connection. Heather's presence continued to shadow my thoughts. I couldn't escape the guilt, the tension, the constant tug of war between loyalty and fascination. One evening, she confronted me directly. "Marco, I know something is happening," she said, voice firm but hurt. "I don't know what it is, but I can feel it. I see it in your eyes, in your body language, in the way you talk to me sometimes like I'm not enough." I swallowed hard. "Heather, it's not that I—" "You don't have to explain," she interrupted, eyes glistening slightly. "But I need you to be honest with yourself. And with me." Her words reverberated in my mind long after she left. Honest with myself. Honest with her. I realized that honesty would demand facing truths I wasn't ready to confront. My fascination with Luigi, the growing intensity of my thoughts, and the conflict that threatened everything I had built with Heather. The weeks that followed became a careful dance of proximity and distance. Luigi and I shared fleeting encounters, always charged with subtle tension, a delicate balance of observation, intrigue, and restraint. He never pushed, never imposed, but his presence was impossible to ignore. Every glance, every slight smile, every quiet word left echoes in my chest. Heather, meanwhile, became more distant, more guarded, her intuitive awareness creating an invisible barrier that reminded me of the fragile threads of the life I had before Luigi arrived. The duality of my existence, torn between loyalty, attraction, and the unknown, grew heavier, an almost physical weight pressing down with every step I took across campus, through the quad, past the library, toward the future I couldn't yet see. And in the quiet moments, when the sun dipped low and the world felt suspended. I realized something that both thrilled and terrified Mech Luigi had changed everything, and there was no turning back. The magnetism, the tension, the fascination. All of it had woven itself into the fabric of my days, setting the stage for a story that was only beginning, a journey that would test the limits of loyalty, morality, and the heart itself.